So my friends, I have the coolest job title in corporate America. My job title is the Jolly Good Fellow, which nobody can deny. Okay, good. So the story was this. As Chao Bing said, I joined Google very early. I'm the first Singaporean to join Google. So when I joined, how should I say it? So if I look my Google age, this is what I look like. I look very old. I'm so old, I joined Google in the last millennium. That's how old I am. Oh, by the way, anybody knows the person on this picture? He's Lao Tzu, right? The old Taoist sage. Recently, I discovered something about Lao Tzu. I discovered that Lao Tzu was a very wealthy man. I didn't know that. So how did I find out? Because every time I go to China, somebody tells me, 老子有钱啊。说真的啊，历史好像没有这么记载嘞。So for those who don't speak Chinese, sorry, I spoke a pun and puns don't translate. So anyway, I joined Google really early. And when you join a startup, you don't have a job title. So I have a generic job title, which was software engineer. And then a couple years later, the company started having a career ladder. And the highest ranking engineer in Google was called a Google Fellow. Right? So engineers make fun of HR all the time. So I made a joke. I say, hey, why be a fellow when you can be, I don't know, a jolly good fellow? Right? And then some people laugh. And then my philosophy is if everybody laughs, that's the right thing to do. The other philosophy we have in Google is that we never ask for permission. We only ask for forgiveness. So given that joke, I sent this for printing. And without telling HR. So which is why I put which nobody can deny. So first there's a song, right? You know, everybody knows the song, right? He's a jolly good fellow. Ends with, which nobody can deny, right? So I put this up. So the reason is because I was expecting HR to deny this request when they see it. And once they deny this request, I have a funny story to tell. So either way, I win, right? So I sent this for printing. Turns out HR had a sense of humor. So this got approved. And then I found myself on the front page of the New York Times. So since then, I got stuck with this. Speaking about front page of the New York Times, so this was the first time I was on the front page of the New York Times. It was for an institution called Ming's War. Does anybody know about this, by the way? So there is a tradition in Google called Ming's War, where anybody who's famous, like Muhammad Ali, Madeleine Albright, and so on, when they come to Google, they must have a picture taken with me. And it goes on the wall. Yeah, strange, right? So that's the tradition. One funny joke I tell is, people say Ming has a great wall. I say, of course, I'm Chinese, I build great wall, duh. Yeah, not everybody like the joke. The other thing I'd like to say is, I'm the only person I know who has been on the front page of the New York Times 4 times in one day. Yeah, beat that, Karl Rove. And that sex thing, that's not me. Even I don't have that much fun. So how did this come about? Let me start from the beginning. Once upon a time, there was a boy whose name is Al. And then when Al grew up, he wanted to be President of the United States. And Al ran for President of the United States, and he won. Except he lost in the Supreme Court by just 1 vote. And Al did not become President of the United States. And because of that, Al had time to visit Google. So when Al visited Google, I asked for a picture. Al Gore, for those who are too young to remember. The reason I took this picture is to impress my mom. because it didn't happen until you have a picture. So I have something to show my mom. See, I have a picture with Al Gore, Yeah. So that was one picture. And then sometime later, something else happened. I was in my office, minding my own business. I looked out my office window, and then I saw police cars hiding at the exits of the car park. So, ooh, something's happening. Police cars are hiding there. There's a stakeout. And then I walk around the building in Google. By the way, Google back then is just one small building. I walk around the building and I saw big men in black suits with dark glasses and earpieces. Ooh, somebody important is in the building. Of course, they won't talk. So what did I do? I just sat at the lobby waiting for somebody important to show up. And guess who showed up? President and Mrs. Carter. So I asked for this picture. And the only person that day who had a camera was Larry Page. So Larry took this picture. So there was, and then I put these two pictures outside my office window, office wall, and that's how it started. If you have two pictures, it snowballs. Right? So who else are on Wei Meng's wall? You may recognize some of them. For example, you may recognize President Clinton and her husband Bill. Yeah. Takes a few seconds for that. You know the saying, right? He who laughs last didn't get the joke the first time. So yeah, that was you. Kidding. I must be one of very few Singaporeans to ever speak at the UN. Probably Xiao Bing has spoken at the UN, but I spoke at the UN with a supermodel. Yeah, beat that. I'm also one of few Singaporeans who has spoken at TED. Yeah, this is the, if you don't get enough of my speech, you can go to this URL. So the latest thing I did, the first thing I did that was cool, besides having a cool job title, was having a cool job description. My job description now is only 7 words. Enlighten minds, open hearts, create world peace. That's my job description. It got approved by management. It blew my mind. I suggested it to my boss, and my boss said, okay, approved. I said, really, yeah. So anyway, that's my new job description. I started in Google as an engineer. I became the first engineer in the history of Google to join HR. The reason I joined HR was because engineers have 20% time, right? 20% of time you can do whatever you want. And I used that 20% time to design a curriculum for emotional intelligence called Search Inside Yourself. So it became very successful in Google. It became one of maybe the most popular curriculum in Google. It is a curriculum for emotional intelligence for adults. And I wrote it into a book. It became a bestseller instantly. It was a New York Times bestseller. It was an international bestseller. It was #1 in Singapore and Hong Kong and Taiwan or something, and South Korea, of all places. My favorite thing about this book is the back cover. Because on the back cover, you see endorsements by the Dalai Lama, the President Carter, and President Narendran. My friends, you see, this is how you know it's a good book. Because what is the probability that all 3 of them are wrong at the same time? So, this is my background. Angie asked me to come here to talk about mindfulness in the context of business. Oh, by the way, this is the second time I was on the front page of the New York Times. When we talk about mindfulness, I'm going to make a big claim. I'm going to claim that the practice of mindfulness can be life-changing. Life-changing. I'm not talking about small things. I'm not talking about, you'll be calmer, you have less stress, you'll be more peaceful, you'll be more creative. No, I'm going to say that this practice of mindfulness has the potential to fundamentally change your life. And for the next couple of minutes, I'll be telling you, giving you an idea how. But first, let me give you a definition. What is mindfulness? So, mindfulness is defined as this: paying attention, but not just paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and most importantly, non-judgmentally. This, my friends, is mindfulness. Is anybody game for 10-second exercise? 10 seconds, okay? Very easy. For 10 seconds, I want you to do this. I want you to bring attention to the process of breathing, whatever that means to you. Attend to the process of breathing. And if you need something more specific, bring attention to the sensation at the nose as you are breathing. That's all. For 10 seconds, and every time your attention wanders away, you bring it back. Easy, right? Okay? 10 seconds, beginning now. Okay, time's up. So how was this? Okay lah. This is the point in my talk where people ask for their money back. Because if I were to give a presentation to a bunch of Google engineers, they'll be asking me the question. In Google, it's called the WTF question. WTF stands for what is happening? So the question, the courteous version of this question is, how can this possibly benefit me? Right? It makes no sense, right? I bring attention to my breath, it wanders away, I bring it back. How could this possibly do me any good? To answer this question, we need to use a physical analogy. We need to use an analogy of exercise. Theme of the day, babies. Very Singaporean. Very PAP. So pretend that nobody in this room knows anything about physical fitness. And pretend that what we just did was one bicep curl, right? And if we do that, you should be asking the same question. Say, wait. I take a heavy object, I move it up, I move it down. How can this possibly do me any good? Right? However, if you know about exercise, you know the answer. The answer is, every time you do one of this, you strengthen the muscles here a little bit more. So if you do a lot of this, what happens? You develop a quality called strength. And once you develop this quality called strength, you begin to have new capabilities. You begin to be able to do things you never imagined doing before. Like carrying heavier stuff, for example, or throwing out the boyfriend, Literally, like the boyfriend say, hey, take out the trash. Okay, take out the trash. Throw him out. However, in addition to throwing out the boyfriend, something else happens, which is if you do a lot of this, what happens? You develop also something called health and fitness. Physical health and fitness in this case. And when that happens, the first thing that changes in your life is you become more successful. Why? Because you have fewer sick days and you have more energy. That's all. Like that alone, you become more successful in life. And you feel great. You feel well. There's wellness. And you look good in the mirror. And you feel happy. You feel good all the time. So if you think back, I'm making a very big claim. I'm claiming that taking a heavy object up and down, has implications that go to success, happiness, well-being, feeling great all the time. And if you had never heard of the concept of physical fitness, the claim is mind-blowing. Right? And I'm going to make the same claim about what you just did. When you bring attention to breath, wanders away, you bring it back. Every time you bring back a wandering attention, it's like doing one bicep curl for the mind, specifically for the brain, the prefrontal cortex. Because every time you do one of these, you're strengthening the muscles of attention a little bit more. And with enough training, you begin to master attention. And when you master attention, you begin to have mental and emotional health and fitness. And then when that happens, yes, implications like physical fitness that goes all the way to success, profits, well-being, feeling great, and so on, and more so than physical fitness. And I'm going to tell you how. So the first benefit, by the way, if you don't mind, I'm going to start small. I'm going to start with the small benefits of mindfulness and work my way up. Okay? The first benefit of mindfulness is this, is the ability to calm the mind on demand. Or another way to say it is the ability to bring the mind to a calm and clear state and to do that on demand. Next slide. Sort of like this, right? Calm and clear. So, first question, why is that important? Or why is that even useful? There is a quote, a famous quote by Viktor Frankl, which is this, which is that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your power and freedom to choose your response. If you have this skill, if you have the skill to calm the mind on demand, the first thing you gain is the ability to access this space, the space between stimulus and response on demand. Reliably. Access the space reliably. And if you can do that, then reliably you have the ability to choose a response, and therefore you get choice, power, freedom. Freedom, my friends, from this one simple skill. That's just the first benefit. The other benefit is leadership. So I'll give you an example. In a boardroom, right, and there's a crisis. And everybody, all your team members, they're all frazzled. Oh my God, we're going to lose money, we're going to go bankrupt, whatever. Everybody's panicking. And you alone have the ability to calm the mind on demand. Therefore, you alone can think. What happens? Everybody around the boardroom looks at you and they're thinking, this person, leader. For good reasons, because that is leadership. Leadership is the ability to think under fire. And that ability, turns out, is something that some of us are born with. However, it is also highly trainable. And it's trainable with this skill, in this method, using mindfulness to develop the ability to calm the mind on demand, and that's how you train the skill, which has profound implications for leadership. It makes you a good leader. So that's just the first benefit. The second benefit is clarity. Remember, I said calm and clear mind. The mind of mindfulness, in addition to being calm, is also clear. And when I say clear, I mean something very specific. I mean the ability to perceive the process of emotion at high resolution. So what does that mean? What does it mean, high resolution? Specifically, I mean this. I mean the high resolution on two dimensions. The first dimension is spatial, which is the ability to perceive small changes in the process of emoting, or the process of emotion. The second dimension is temporal, which is the ability to perceive that in thin slices of time. So combine the spatial and temporal dimension, what you get is the ability to perceive an emotion the moment it's arising, the moment it's disappearing, and all the small changes in between. So what does that buy you? The first thing it buys you is this, again, related to the Viktor Frankl quote. If you have an emotional experience and you want to have choice about it, when's the best time? It is the moment the emotion is arising, right? And therefore, if you develop the ability to perceive that moment, then you develop some mastery over attention. And for example, you find the ability to not say something nasty to your mother-in-law, which sounds like a joke, but it's actually a success story in my class. Right? One of the people who attended my class, a Googler, he was a former Marine, so he's very big, and a big white guy. Right? And he took my class. That was his success story. His mother-in-law did something, and then he found the ability to breathe instead of talk. And then he looked back and said, whoa, in other situations I would say something that I'm going to regret. But here I didn't say it. And so that was a success story, changed his life. That one thing alone changed his life. However, besides that, something else happened, which is that if you have a high resolution perception into the emotional process, you're able to perceive the process of emotion clearly. You begin to be very good at something called emotional awareness. You become very finely aware of moment-to-moment emotional experience, and more importantly, that leads to something called accurate self-assessment. You begin to see yourself clearly and objectively. So for example, the big questions in life. So the first level, right? What am I feeling right now, moment to moment? That leads to answer to big questions in life. Who am I? Who am I? What do I care about? What matters to me? What makes me happy? What are my strengths? What are my resources? What are my weaknesses? What do I need to compensate for? And so on. You get clarity in those questions. And that's important. Why? Because there's a quality called self-assessment, which is known to be one of the most important qualities of a successful leader. For a very simple reason. Because nobody's perfect. That's simple. Therefore, because you're not perfect, if you are strong in self-assessment, then you know where you're strong at, where you're weak at, where you're good at, where you need help, where you need to build a team, where you're number two, who your number two, what his skill set should be, and so on. Then you're a successful leader. So this quality, very important. And that's only the second benefit. Again, very useful. The third benefit is resilience. Specifically in this case, resilience to failure. And when I talk about resilience, I'm talking about resilience that operates on 3 levels. So, for example, you have an experience of failure. When you have experience of failure, something you did that went horribly wrong, right? The first level of resilience is attentional, which is the ability, again, to calm the mind using your attention and mastery. Sort of like this. One way to look at it is mindfulness allows you to ground the mind in the face of turbulence. When the mind is represented by the flag, and the wind represents turbulent emotions, and mindfulness grounds you. And if you have that grounding, if you can find that grounding on demand already, first thing, you have that level of resilience. The second level of resilience is affective, which affect means the emotion. The ability to deal with the emotions, especially as they manifest in the body. Because every emotional experience is also a physiological experience. Therefore, when you have enough clarity of mind to see even the emotionality involved in failure as just another experience in the body, no more than a pain in my hand, same level. Failure, same as pain in my hand. Then you begin to have mastery over that aspect of failure, and again you start to have resilience over that aspect. The third level is cognitive, which is the ability to think about the bigger picture, learn optimism. They're able to see that, no, I failed this time, but I can see how I'm going to succeed the next time. I can see how this lesson applies, and so on. Right? Things you learn about in management books. Learn optimism, and so on. Learn optimism only works if you have the affective level. The affective level only works if you have the attentional level. So combine all 3. And the reverse is also true. If you only have the attentional level of resilience, things happen badly, calm your mind. The moment you're not calm anymore, your problems come back. Right? So you need the other 2 levels to completely solve the problem. But once you have all 3 levels, my friends, this is where you develop resilience, and this is where you find the ability to conquer failure. And that's how you succeed. Because everybody fails, but the person who's resilient to failure becomes successful. So this is the third benefit. And these are the small benefits. If you take a look at the last 3, the last 3 benefits, they build to something. They build to something very interesting and maybe not so expected. Confidence. Yeah, the theme of the day, yes, is babies. This confidence is a very wholesome confidence. It's a confidence without conceit. And this confidence has 3 characteristics, or three building blocks. The first building block is confidence arising from knowing. And the 2 levels of that. The first level is you know your stuff. You're the expert. That's why you walk in the room with confidence. But there's something more. The second level is confidence arising from knowing self. Right? If you know yourself to the degree that there is no skeleton in your closet that you don't already know about, that you're not already comfortable with, then you have that level of confidence. Right? So that's the first building block, confidence arising from knowing. The second building block is confidence. Oh, by the way, and where does it come from? It comes from something we talked about earlier, which is clarity, self-assessment. Self-assessment combined, or accurate self-assessment, combined with knowing your stuff, being an expert in a topic, creates confidence arising from knowing. The second building block of confidence is confidence arising from equanimity. And again, there are two parts to this. The first part is the ability to calm the mind on demand. If you walk into any situation, any difficult situation, for example, you need to speak in front of 300 people, and some of them very, very big-time people. I don't know. Let's give an example. Ambassador to Brazil, for example. I don't know where that came from. I'm just making an example. If you are in that situation, and you know that you have, whatever happens, you have the ability to calm the mind, then you can get into the situation with confidence, right? Because whatever is, my mind stays calm. So that's one block, one piece of it. The other piece relating to confidence arising from equanimity is the ability to hold the ego very lightly. Or the way I see it is the ability to have fun, to play the ego. For the ego to be as small as a grain of sand and as big as Mount Fuji at the same time. For example, if I'm speaking to, let me give you another example. I was speaking at the World Peace Festival in Berlin. And I was on the panel. And next to me is a Nobel Peace Laureate, and Deepak Chopra, right? One of the coolest people I know, and a couple of others. And I was like, it's a peace conference, sitting next to a Nobel Peace Laureate. And who am I? I'm some guy from Google. Right? So what do? And so I had to play with my ego lightly, like hold it lightly, which is, I had to feel that my ego is so tiny, I'm nothing. All I'm here to do is to serve my audience. That's all. I'm nothing. At the same time, I'm so big. I'm as big as the Nobel Peace Laureate on stage. Because if I'm not that big, I cannot serve my audience. So holding both at once. And the secret to that is humor. Right? And the secret to that humor is the ability to calm the mind and the self-knowledge that leads to self-mastery, and the self-mastery leads to humor about the ego. So that's the second part. The third piece, or the third building block of confidence, is confidence arising from resilience. And again, there are two pieces. The first piece is the ability to recover. If you're in the situation, for example, like this, right? Let me tell you another story. Again, another example. I was speaking at the UN on TED. So TED Talks are huge, right? I was invited to speak at TED, and it was held at the UN. So that was double huge for me. And I knew it was the biggest speech of my life. I knew that 500,000 people will be watching the speech, eventually. So I was very nervous. So I went on stage, and I spoke, and as I was speaking, halfway during my speech, I realized that my right leg was shaking. And I had that presence of mind to know that if this continues on, I'm going to be known as the guy who fell off stage at TED. Not good for my image. So I applied everything I learned, right? Calm my mind, subtly shift my weight to the other leg that's not shaking, and continue speaking. And then this one recovered, this leg started to shake, then I move over. So my friends, that's recovery. So if you're in a situation, you know that if the first thing fails, the equanimity thing fails, it's okay, I can recover. That's confidence. Oh, by the way, I watched the video later. So later on, it went on TED.com, I watched the video, and I could not see the nerves. I mean, I was there. I mean, that was me. I knew, right? That guy was so nervous. But I couldn't see it. My friends, 20 years of meditation turns out not completely useless. There's another piece about confidence arising from resilience, which is really important, which is confidence arising from the willingness to witness suffering and failure within oneself. If you are able to fail and look at this person and see yourself failing and willing to witness this failure with equanimity, then that is resilience. Then you have that level of confidence. So my friends, combine these three parts. Confidence arising from knowing, from equanimity, and from resilience. These three. All very wholesome, and all starting from mindfulness. Good for your career, good for your soul, and makes you happy. But wait, there's more. This leads to something even bigger. Maybe not bigger, but more visible. Confidence leads to something else, which is, surprisingly, charisma. So, what has confidence got to do with charisma? It turns out that charisma has three components. There are confidence, which we talked about, and there are two other components of charisma. One is presence and warmth. So what is presence? Presence, there are two aspects of presence. The first aspect of presence is being totally here. If you're always here, you have presence. The second aspect of presence is when you're with somebody, that somebody is, you give somebody your full attention, whoever that person is. That is presence. So let me tell you a story. This is a story from Tolstoy. It's called The Three Questions. It's called a short story, but it's fairly long. So I'm just going to skip right to the end, the punchline. So the story was that a king realized that if he knows the answers to three questions, he'll always be successful. And the three questions are, when is the best time? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? So to cut the story short, at the end he found a wise man. And the wise man gave you the answers. Answers are, the most important time is now. Because now is the only time you have some influence over. The most important person is the person you're interacting with at the moment. The most important thing to do is to do right or to do good for that person you're interacting with. And the wise man tells the king, if you do these three, you will never fail. You'll always be successful. So presence, in the context of charisma, this is presence. The three questions, answering the three questions, or fulfilling the three questions. That's presence. The third aspect of charisma is warmth. And warmth can be reduced, basically, in my opinion, reduced to one sentence. And the one sentence is, I'm happy to see you. That is warmth. If you had a feeling towards anybody you see, I'm happy to see you. Right? And sometimes warmth, you mean it figuratively, but sometimes you mean literally, because sometimes you actually feel the warmth in the chest. So presence, where does it come from? Presence comes from two practices. The first practice is mindfulness, right? Because as Chalving said, mindfulness is being in the present. So if you practice a lot of being in the present, it becomes second nature. Then you're always in the present. The other aspect of presence comes from compassion practice. Right? If you treat people with compassion, then you fulfill the three questions effortlessly. Because you'll always be thinking, you're always with the person you're talking to, and you're always thinking, how can I benefit this person? Effortlessly. That is presence. What builds warmth? Warmth is built by kindness practice, loving kindness. Shall we do another 10-second exercise? Oh, Angie, you have to tell me, if it's go over time, you tell me, just like. But don't have to be so obvious. Okay, 10-second exercise. We're going to do some kindness exercise. Very simple. Everybody identify two human beings in this room. For 10 seconds, wish for these two people to be happy. That's all. Don't say out, don't say anything, don't do anything. Just think. So it's not embarrassing, right? Okay, okay? Sounds good? Okay, 10 seconds, beginning now. Okay, thank you. Do you all notice you're smiling? Right? The first thing about kindness is is that kindness can be framed as a mental habit. What does that mean? The mental habit of kindness is to look at a human being, and the first thought is, I wish for this guy to be happy. That's the first thought. I wish for this guy to be happy. The first thought when you see a human being is wish for this person to be happy. Why? Because it is a habit. For no other reason than because this is my habit. And if you have that habit, habit becomes personality, personality becomes character, character becomes you. Eventually you become a kind person. And all it takes is to develop a habit, a mental habit, which is profoundly amazing, in my opinion. So, kindness can be trained as a habit. And the way to train kindness, train habit, do it over and over again. So randomly, just look around and just wish for people to be happy. Just think, wish for that guy to be happy. That's all. No need to say it out, not embarrassing. Okay, just think. Oh, let me see. I'm going to make another claim. Another claim I'm going to make is that all qualities we consider saintly, loving kindness, compassion, altruism, love, gratefulness or gratitude, and so on. All of them can be framed as mental habits. Therefore, all of them can be trained as mental habits. Therefore, we can all train to be more like saints, simply with mental habits. And if that claim is true, that's mind-blowing. Right? We can all become saints. So, these are the three qualities of charisma. And by the way, if you have only one of those qualities, people start to see you as being charismatic. If you have two of those qualities, one person I can give an example of, Steve Jobs. Steve has confidence, he has presence, he doesn't have warmth, but he's very charismatic. If you have all three of those qualities, if you are presence, if you have warmth and you have confidence, who will you look like? Clinton, Obama, the Dalai Lama. You'll be at the apex of charisma. And all these qualities are trainable. And they are trainable with very simple things: mindfulness, attention, mental habits, life-changing stuff. But wait, there's even more. Let me see if I've got time or not. Don't want to interfere with your makan. The last few pieces lead to something even bigger, in my opinion. What it leads to is outstanding leadership. To be an outstanding leader, in my opinion, requires 4 C's. The first C, very obvious, competence. Like basic things, you must know how to organize, you must know how to strategize, you must know how to lead, you must know how to manage people. If you cannot do any of this, you cannot be a leader. Simple as that. So core competence, very obvious, first C. However, in addition to competence, there are 3 other things that makes you a great leader. The second thing that makes you a great leader is confidence. We talked about this. The third thing that makes you a great leader is charisma. Right? And confidence and charisma coming from good places, coming from warmth, coming from presence, coming from resilience, equanimity, and so on. What is the 4th quality, the 4th C? I suggest the 4th C is compassion. So the question is, what has compassion got to do with leadership? So first I give you a definition. What is compassion? Something very embarrassing. So I'm one of the co-founders of this center in Stanford on compassion. It's called CCARE, the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. And we founded this center in order to study compassion as a scientific subject. The idea is if we understand compassion scientifically, then maybe we know how to replicate it worldwide. Right? Makes sense, right? So we founded this center, and then we discovered the first problem. Very embarrassing. The first problem is there is no consensus definition for compassion. It turns out everybody knows what it is, but nobody can agree on the definition. So the first order of the day was to come up with a consensus definition. And this, what came out from this was satisfactory to me. This is the definition that I use. The person who came up with this was Thupten Jinpa. And so this is the definition. It's a mental state endowed with a sense of concern for the suffering others and aspiration to see suffering relieved. More importantly, compassion has three components. The first component is affective. Affective means the emotional component of compassion, which is I feel for you. Next, the second component is cognitive, which is I understand you. So these are pieces of compassion. The third piece, even more important. It is so important that the Dalai Lama claimed, or he argues that third piece is the only piece that matters. The third piece, next, is motivational, which is I want to help you. Compassion is a state where you are motivated to do good things for the benefit of others. So it sounds nice, kind of good. What has this got to do with leadership? There is, anybody read this book called Good to Great? Yeah? Okay. If you only read one business book in your lifetime, read that book, Good to Great. It is a fascinating book. It is the best-selling business book of all time, for a good reason. So the premise of this book is a very big study. The study was this. They looked at every public company, I think from 1955 to 95 or something, some broad range of time. And they looked for companies that perform average. They're good companies. They're not bad, right? But they're sort of trending the market. And then these companies went from good to great. And they defined great as something like doing 3 times as good as a normal company for an extended period, for like 10 years. So it's not a fluke. Something happened that turned these companies from good to great. So the study was, let's find these companies, find comparison companies, and study these factors. What made companies go from good to great? The first finding, and in my opinion, the most important finding, is the right leadership. Good to great leaders, the word they use for them, they are level 5 leaders, because they define leadership on 5 levels. This is the highest level. Level 5 leaders. These are the type of leaders who turn companies or organizations from goodness to greatness. And there's something about them. So first, they are competent leaders, right? They're good CEOs. And in addition to that, there are 2 other qualities which are very important and seem to be contradicting. The first quality is ambition. These people are very ambitious, and they are ambitious for the greater good. The second quality is personal humility, which seems to conflict, right? However, it turns out that level 5 leaders possess both qualities at once because they are motivated to serve the greater good, and therefore they don't feel the motivation to inflate their own self-ego. And it turns out these leaders are the only ones that bring companies from good to great. So if you look at that, great ambition and personal humility. So this is a pun, right? I say puns don't translate, right? I translated this to Chinese. I'm so proud of this. So there's a Chinese edition of my book. And this, nobody knew how to translate this because it's a pun. And my translation, want to hear my translation? Yeah. My translation is my character saying to this guy, 我说朝向卓越，不是朝思卓越. Yeah, I'm very proud of it. So, if you look at compassion relating to, okay, the 3 components of compassion. Effective, I feel for you, next. I understand you, I want to help you. Compared to the 2 characteristics of a level 5 leader. He's humble, he's ambitious for greater good. He's greatly ambitious. Do you see a relationship? Next, the affective and the cognitive aspect of compassion reduces the need, excessive need for ego, tones it down, therefore creating the conditions for humility. Next, the motivational aspect of compassion, wanting to serve the greater good, creates the condition for ambition for greater good. Therefore, compassion is the necessary and insufficient condition for level 5 leadership. Therefore, if you are not a compassionate leader, you will never be a good to great leader. You have to learn compassion. You have to develop compassion. Then, my friends, you are ready for greatness. And the good news is, compassion is highly trainable because it is mental habits. and mindfulness. So these are the benefits. So I've discussed with you some of the benefits of mindfulness, starting with calmness, clarity, resilience, and so on. And you find that if you only do one of those things, only get one of those benefits, that alone could be life-changing. For example, if you can calm the mind on demand, that one thing alone, life-changing. Right? If you have clear, deep self-awareness, that one thing alone, life-changing, and so on. And obviously, this has impact on business. If members of a team practice mindfulness and they also acquire resilience and warmth, obviously the team becomes more effective. Obviously, you earn more money, right, as a business. More than that, by the way, more than that, this has potential to change the world. In my opinion, mindfulness, compassion, kindness, and these practices has the potential to create the conditions for world peace. And let me end my talk by telling you why I started doing this, why I became the Jolly Good Fellow and moved from engineering to HR. It started with a very simple dream, small dream. All I wanted to do was to create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. That's all. It started in 2003. In 2003, I was taking a walk outside the Google campus, and back then it was a small company, a small cluster of buildings. And I had that moment, which some of you are old enough to have, right? You know, there's a moment in your life where you know what you're going to do or what you want to do for the rest of your life, right? That moment of clarity, I had that moment while taking a walk. And that moment, I knew what I want to do is for the rest of my life, I want to create a condition for world peace in my lifetime. World peace in my lifetime. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. How do I do that? I figured it out. I figured the way I wanted to do that is to scale inner peace, inner joy, and compassion worldwide. So the way I see it is there are two conditions for world peace. Necessary and insufficient by themselves. Combined, they are necessary and sufficient. The first condition is the end of global poverty. However, not enough. The second condition is something I call global enlightenment, which I define as inner peace, inner joy, and compassion on a global scale. Combined, I think that will create the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. And I decided to focus on the second piece. So, how do I do that? I figured it out. I figured the way to do that is to align goodness, peace, joy, compassion with success and profits. Because if I were to go around the world talking about goodness, let's all be kind, let's all be compassionate, let's all practice mindfulness. I mean, people will say, yeah, okay, they clap their hands, hey, they be a best-selling author, and then they go home. Right? However, if I were to go around and say, this is the formula for success, you will become successful, you will earn more money, you become a great leader, and the necessary and unavoidable side effect of this work is inner peace, inner joy, and compassion, and therefore world peace. Sure, sign me up, right? Yeah, people they want to be successful, they don't mind world peace. So I figured that's the only way to do it. So, question, how do I do that? I figured that out. By the way, when I say I figured it out, it actually took months. Every step took months to figure out. I figured out that the way to do that was to create a curriculum for emotional intelligence for adults. Because everybody knows EI, good for my career, good for my team, good for profits. But nobody knew how to develop it in adults. And being a practitioner of mindfulness, I sort of knew. So all I had to do is to gather some of the world's top experts in the topic. Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on EI, get a neuroscientist from Stanford, get a Zen master from California, and so on. Gather them together, figure it out. And what came out was search inside yourself. So ever since then, I have been, and by the way, it was my 20% time project as an engineer. And it became bigger and bigger, and eventually, Google just gave me a job. They said, you want to do this full time? I was like, okay. And I took the opportunity to go into semi-retirement. So I Google pay me half a salary, so I only have to work 40 hours a week. Yes, I know. So this is how I end up doing whatever I'm doing now. So my friends, I hope this talk has been helpful to you, and I hope that together we'll all work together to create the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. Thank you.